You are listening to the Next Play podcast, the playbook for high-performing leaders who want to exceed their full potential. From walking on the Ole Miss football team at 5'7", 150 pounds and earning a full D1 scholarship, to coaching thousands around the world and working with massive organizations like IBM. I've learned countless lessons that I'll be sharing right here with you. Join me as I interview some of the most successful people so you too can learn how to focus on always moving forward by deciding, planning, and executing on the next play relentlessly. This is Richie Contartesi with the Next Play podcast, and today we have a special guest for you, the VP of Sales at Intellect, Mr. Peter Cutler, someone that I've had a chance to speak with quite a few times. And his resume is impactful. It's powerful. He's been doing this for over 36 years, and he has 15 years of experience at Thomson Reuters, where he worked his way up to vice president of sales with which was a $300 million division. He then took cross-border. When he started there was 18 employees. He worked and built the company, up to 140 employees. And now he's at Intellect, where they actually did just sell, but he's got a hell of a resume. He's extremely smart, as you'll see on this podcast. So Peter, super glad to have you on the show and to learn about how you've been able to have so much success.
Thanks, Richie. I appreciate it. You're making me feel pretty old when you say 30 plus years, but thank you.
Yeah. I mean, hey, that's something that a lot of people like. There's something to say about experience, and you have that. And so I'm excited to pull as much as I can. And that's one of the reasons I love doing these podcasts so much, is I've learned so much from speaking with CEOs, executives, sales leaders like you. And I'm like, man, every time I learn something new and I implement it, the surveys in between on that last thing, it's something that we're not doing that I'm now going to be doing. So always learning something new. So I appreciate it. But let's just jump right into you. Let's talk about how you got into sales leadership. And then I want to talk into the nitty gritty of what you're doing today. But let's just start there. How did you get into sales leadership?
Sure. So back in the 80s, I was carrying a bag in West LA, had 6 zip codes, was Rookie of the Year, won President's Board, and was ultimately promoted to Regional Sales Manager. Took over a very lagging region, and we were actually number one 3 years in a row, which was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Then got promoted to Vice President of Sales, had to relocate to New York City. For those of you familiar with New York, at Hudson and Houston at 395 Hudson Street. Led a team of 300, as you mentioned. It was very different for me because I wasn't, that hands-on manager. I was more of a leader's leader, leading directors, etc. But we did fantastic. That was also during the dot-com boom, and I hooked up with a company called Cross Border Solutions that you alluded to.
Yeah.
Ended up joining Cross Border, met the owners. It was a family-owned company. Spent 4.5 years there, and as you mentioned, we grew the company very quickly. We had a very aggressive sales approach, and when we left, we sold it to Thomson Reuters for about $80 million. So, used my connections to Thomson, made the introductions, and got that sold. After that, I needed a rest, so I had relocated to New York for that. Moved back to LA. Joined a company called Instant Info Systems, more of a lifestyle opportunity, where I led a sales organization there. A very, very profitable company, value-added reseller, very, very profitable. Owner made lots of money, but then it got to a point where I was like, I want to do it again. I want to take that company small, grow it, sell it. So joined Intellect in March of 18 as a contractor. Small company. We were like 20 employees, and the CEO was unsure about heads of sales. He had made a couple of mistakes. After 3 months in May, I was made a full-time employee, and that's when I began to learn a lot of my lessons. So I had never actually...
After 32 years.
After 32 years, I learned a lot of my lessons.
Tell me about, what do you mean by that? Because I have to say, and I know we were kind of talking about this before in a little bit, but in this industry, man, you just don't hear that. I mean, if you listen to any of the podcasts, we've had some great guests, and some guests, they're just like pure, everything's perfect, everything's like, and it's like, come on, like it's not realistic. And so
Yep.
I just want to point that out, that I appreciate someone who's been in the industry 36 years, has had as much success as that you have had, to be able to say that is really powerful and says a lot about you. But I want to dive into that. Like, how is that 32 years? Look at Thomson Reuters. These are not, no name companies. What do you walk me through that?
Okay. Well, a philosophy that I have, and I'm from Boston, so I hope you can appreciate this.
Yeah.
And everyone listening, you all know who the GOAT is.
The greatest of all time, Tom Brady. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Good. Okay, cool. I like it.
Huge Tom Brady fan. And one of his quotes is, I learn far more from my mistakes than I do my successes. And you can look that up. It's one of his, he says it all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of one of my credos. But when I joined when I joined Intellect, I took everything that I had learned across border, and I'm like, I'm just going to apply that here. It's going to work. And it is. I'm going to apply it here. Send out as many proposals as you can, do as many demos as you can, and it's a numbers game. It's just going to close. And so I joined there in March, went to my first board meeting, laid out my strategy. And then in October, we had our board meeting, and I was failing. And I wasn't failing, but we weren't doing very well, let's put it that way. And one of the board members there, his first name is Rob. He goes, Peter, I'm looking at your pipeline and I see furniture. What do you mean, Rob? It's just sitting there. It's not doing anything. And that was kind of a light bulb for me. Why do I have a pipeline that's doing nothing?
Yeah. Like people weren't moving through the stages, or
yep, weren't moving through the stages. They were just sitting there, and we're rose-colored glasses. It's going to close. It's a numbers game. It's going to close.
Gotcha.
And at that point, he mentioned a trainer that we hired. His name is Steve Craner. Has a company called Software Sales Gurus. He was a former Sandler trainer, and we implemented his processes.
Okay.
At around the same time, I grew up with the terms prospect, suspect, etc. Never knew what the term MQL meant, SQL meant, or anything like that. Another big mistake by me. And my head of marketing, who's like one of the nicest guys in the world, basically laid it out to me. Peter, you got to learn this stuff, because if you don't do this, you're not going to succeed. Failure number 2. I wasn't doing that.
Let me ask you, but why? So just in all that time at cross border, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't share with you what an MQL was? Like,
no, I don't even know. Did MQL exist back in 2000? I don't even know if it existed.
That's the thing. So that's the other thing. Okay, got it. Okay.
But I don't think it existed. And then I'm at this value-added reseller where we were kind of in a vacuum and did our things our own way. So I kind of had missed that boat by taking this lifestyle opportunity. So, it's an education. I always say this. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and I tell her this all the time. I just want to learn one new thing every day. If I can learn one new thing every day, that means I've learned 365 things over the course of a year. Think about that. And so that's sort of my goal. I want to learn one new thing every day. And so I'm always open to it. People force me to be open to it. But, at that point, and then my CEO said to me, Peter, I want sales to be like a factory. It should be like an assembly line. And you should be able to take one person and put them into any part of that assembly line that you want. We should know exactly, when we generate an MQL, how many SQLs are going to come out of that. When we generate an SQL, we should know exactly how many of those are going to get accepted. Off of those accepted, we should know exactly how many of those are going to close.
Right.
And we had no idea. We didn't know any of that data. So we began to build out that process. We actually invested in a product called HubSpot so we could track that data. Since then, we've invested in a lot of other
There was no CRM before that?
We were homegrown. So the company, Intellect, started out in the business process management platform space, BPM space. And It was his pride and joy. And I used to kid him about it because we called it CRM. It was built on our platform that we had for 20 years or 18 years, whatever it was. And I had to go into his office and I'm like, we're going to kill your baby, because he built the whole CRM and we're about to kill it. But to his credit, he's like, that's okay. Kill my baby. I want you to kill it. Which was great. It was very enlightening on his part, right?
Right.
So yeah, so we implemented HubSpot. We began tracking MQL to SQL conversion rates. We began putting it into a formula where we could project each year. Okay, my counterpart on the marketing side, Peter Cutler, he would project the number of MQLs. So if he can generate 150 MQLs each month, and I know 40% of those are going to convert to SQLs, that means I'm going to get 60 SQLs each month.
Right.
For those 60, if I know that 50 are going to be accepted, I've got 50 accepted SQLs. And if I know 20% of those are going to close, I've got 10 deals a month. And those are just hypothetical numbers, but that's what we began doing, and we began hitting our numbers very quickly. It wasn't just the conversion rates, though. It was implementing a sales process. That was probably the most important part. And that's where Steve helped us out quite a bit. He had a discovery call checklist that we used.
Okay.
And better get this right, 4-part checklist. So you'd have the mutual agenda at the beginning where you can, hey, Richie, I want to spend 30 minutes with you today. Is that going to still work for you? And you'll say yes. And then I'll find out from Richie, what are the goals of the call today? What are your goals for the call today? And as we say, you'll unload the truck. And so we go through the mutual agenda. Then we go through a needs analysis. Then we go through an ideal solution. Then we would share pricing. And then we would talk about next steps. So I guess it's a 5-step sales process. And so we go through all of that. And it was about the prospect. It was never about us. We weren't demoing. We weren't showing PowerPoints. We were finding out what that prospect needed. And during the next steps, we would then talk about what we wanted to do next. Now, in the beginning, we weren't nearly as advanced as we are today. We didn't have necessarily clear next steps. We would talk to them about what they wanted to do in terms of timeline and getting an order. And you always based an order off of an implementation date. We're a software company. Right. So when do you want to implement? December. Okay, if you want to implement in December, I got to have an order by October. Is that even feasible? Can we do that? And we work backwards. Over the course of time, and we've had 3 trainers since Steve, we built out a second part of the process, which is our 7-step sales process.
Before going on, because this is really good. Because there's, putting in a process is one thing, implementation is one thing, but how are you going about doing that? Like when you just make a decision on here's the process we're going to do, how do you actually lead your team through implementation and execution of it, right? Because that's always the thing, right?
Yep. Oh, it's hard.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, at the end of the day, you either take to it or you don't. And those that took to it were very successful. I can think Will Chandler did just an awesome job, and he took to the process. He took to my process initially, didn't do so well. He sent out a bunch of proposals. Then we came up with this new process, and he stuck to it, and he was a leader. Same thing with Jason Warren, took to the process. Same thing with Andy, took to the process. But it took them time. It's hard. It's not easy because you have these preconceived notions of what.
It's always harder with people that have been there for a while.
Yep.
Like older people.
Well,
not older, but seasoned. Not for time. They've been.
We don't look at it that way. But more recently, and this has been a very interesting phenomenon for me. More recently, as we've been hiring more salespeople and we've been growing, I've hired people with 2 to 4 years of experience. And when I'm interviewing them, I let them know that we have this process. And my expectation and our expectation is you will follow this process. And what I've found is other companies don't do that. And these people with 2 to 4 years of experience.
Like they don't have processes, or they don't say that that's the.
Hey, Richie, welcome to the company. Go sell something.
Right. For sure.
That's what they're told. Okay.
For sure.
Literally. Yeah. That's what they're told. Figure it out. So I have Cooper, I have Aaron, I have David, I have Sonny, all under 5-year sales experience. They've come in, they've adopted the process, and they absolutely love it. They'll tell me all the time, Peter, this process is awesome. I know exactly what to do every single step of the way. And they have this discovery call checklist. They follow it to a T. They have the 7-step sales process that I'll get into in a minute. They follow it to a T. And they're being very, very successful.
How did you make that happen? Because there's a lot, you're right. There are a lot of companies that say, here's Zoom info. Wishing you all the, yeah. But how did you, number one, like, how did you get them to, the one, so basically it was like, hey, these are the guys, these are the sales people that are going to do it. And they took hold of it. And then how do you keep track of that and make sure they actually do it? Is that all through HubSpot? Is that like, how are you doing that and keeping
there are multiple ways to do it. And I'm actually engaging my sales operations associate effective today to help with that process, but it's through HubSpot. It's through, you do a pipeline review. How can we help you close this deal? Not, okay, when's it going to happen? That doesn't help anybody.
Right.
How can I help you make this happen? What do we need to do? As an example, I'm not going to mention any names, but one of my salesperson people, we were going through his pipeline and we saw an account and the last note was from July 10th.
Is this
and
recent?
It said, this was today, literally today. The last note was from July 10th from the prospect. We're meeting with our CEO. We should know shortly what's going to happen. Nothing from us. And I said, you think you should have responded by now? So hopefully the lesson is learned because it's all in there. And HubSpot's pretty cool. You see all the different deals in their boxes, and if they haven't been contacted in a while, more than a week, it's grayed out. So it's visual. You could see this box. It hasn't been called on. So it's the process. It's paying attention to detail. I wouldn't call it micromanaging. It's not micromanaging. It's helping them close the deals. I don't think any of them would say I'm a micromanager. I'm just looking at the details to help them be successful. And they want to be successful. And I think one of the reasons I say that is I get called on a bunch of sales calls. I don't require them to do it. I'm like, look, if you want me on a call, get me on a call. I spend
like a ride along?
What's that?
You mean like a ride along?
Like a ride along, yeah. But we do everything virtually, so it's a phone along, whatever you want to call it.
Right. Yeah.
It's a Zoom along. So
a Zoom along.
I have right here. I could tell you this week because I haven't put my notes in HubSpot yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. At least 9 sales calls based on these notes that I've been on this week, and that's on top of everything else that I do.
Now, are you interacting on these calls, or are you
Absolutely.
just listening?
They invite me to interact. I don't want to just listen in. I can listen in after the call. We use Zoom and we use HubSpot. If anyone out there uses Gong or anything like that, the Zoom HubSpot integration is free, and it gives you everything that Gong would give you. So literally, the Zoom call gets pushed into HubSpot.
But you need a HubSpot account, right? In order
you have to have a HubSpot account, yes.
Yeah.
But the Zoom goes into HubSpot. You get the little box there, the frame. You get the notes on the side. You can search for keywords, etc.
One thing that's cool about
ride-alongs from your. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, one thing that's cool. One thing that's cool about Gong is it tells you like what percentage they're talking versus you're talking. Does it do that too? Or
it does that too. Oh yeah,
dang.
It absolutely does that, and it's free. Yeah. We looked at Gong, and Alex, he's now promoted to revenue operations manager, but he was my sales operations manager. We were looking at Gong and Chorus. And then he came to me, he goes, Peter, we can do this for free. And they're like between 15 and 25 grand. And he showed it to me. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the same. It's like 90% of what they do. There are a couple things they don't do, but 90% of it. I'm like, yeah, let's just do that.
CRMs today are just like we do everything through our CRM. There's nothing we do outside of it. All of our phone system, our texting, everything is done through. It's way better.
As I said to Alex, ideally, one day, I only have to be in HubSpot. I don't have to go anywhere else. That's
Right.
ideal. But we're not there today. We're getting a tech stack called Deal Hub. So all of our quotes will be generated through HubSpot, sent through HubSpot, and then signed through HubSpot. Things like that. I don't have to leave HubSpot. And that's
Right.
sort of
You're
a goal.
sending proposals through HubSpot.
We're not doing it yet. We're implementing it right now.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
That's
we're implementing
amazing.
it right now.
Because email is all through HubSpot too now, right? No matter, even if you have
so
Gmail for business or whatever.
Our email integrates with HubSpot. Our calendar integrates with HubSpot. So everything it sounds like a commercial for HubSpot. I could tell you all the downsides to HubSpot too, by the way. I could tell you all the downsides because it's not a perfect world.
But in general, we're just saying in general, like a lot of people listening don't use a CRM or don't care to use one. You know,
I don't think you can be successful today without a CRM. I don't see how
it's wild. Peter, I'm gonna blow you away. I have an event coming up. We work with, 80, 90, $100 million companies, and I meet with their sales reps, and they use notepads.
Sounds like an old-time manufacturer or something like that. Because I just, because we call on old-time manufacturers, and they're all using paper and pen to track all of their activities, and that's why they come to us. But I don't know how you can be successful today, especially as a manager.
Can't compete.
How do you manage a team like that? Do you look at their notes on their pieces of paper?
I hate to say it, but you're not. You're not. You're a cheerleader, because how could you actually? You have no data. You have nothing to make decisions on, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the best salespeople are the ones that want to be coached. We have a weekly call every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Somebody has to step up and share a call that they had in the past week, and we review it. And
now, is there a requirement? Is it a good call? Is it a bad call? Is this a deal I closed? Is this a deal I got shut down?
Typically, it's a discovery call. We prefer to do discovery calls because we learn the most from them. But you could. It's very funny. Sonny, who's doing a great job, he's one of my new hires. About a month ago, he came on, and he's like, "This was the worst call I've ever had." And we all listened, and we're like, "That was outstanding." And he's like, "No," and he goes, "It went too long." But I go, "It went long because the guy kept talking, got all this information." He goes, "Yeah, but then I had to have a continuation to a second discovery call." That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, long story short, the deal closed last week, and we had the kickoff call yesterday. Amazing. So, and he thought it was horrible. So whether they think it's good or horrible, bring it on, because we'll let you know how good or how horrible it is. There really are no horrible discovery calls. We all learn from it. We all learn what we should be doing, and we all learn what we should not be doing. And that's really the goal. For example, leading the witness. You never want to lead the witness. You ask an open-ended question, find out the answer. The biggest part of our discovery process, it's as much about qualifying as it is disqualifying. We don't want to waste our time with someone who doesn't fit our ICP.
Right.
And so we spend a lot of time on that.
Now, do you work with marketing on the ICP? Is that something that you've headed up, or do you do it together? How does that work?
Actually, marketing headed it up. Had a lot of input. We have both an inbound and an outbound BDR and SDR team. So on the inbound side, all of the marketing information, it's geared towards our ICP, which is 50 employees to 1,000 employees, labs, medical devices, and electronics companies. And we want the inbound leads to be in those areas. Now, it's not always the case, but that's the goal. Like the deal we just closed, I think it's electronics. It's a battery manufacturer. So they do batteries for automobiles and stuff like that. So it's a joint effort between us. And then on the outbound side, don't just get me a meeting. Get me a meeting with an ICP.
Right.
So focus on electronics, focus on labs when you're doing the outbound. Another thing we found on the outbound side, and maybe I'm digressing a little bit, is we bought a product called Seamless.
Yeah.
I'll tell you up front, I hate them. I think as a management group, it's the worst company I've ever worked with. but my outbound manager loves them because we're getting all of these people that have changed jobs. They're in the quality space and they're in our ICP. And because they've changed jobs, they need a quality software. And so they're looking. And we've had huge success with that. So, and as you can tell, I'll just say it like it is.
Now, are you mainly a marketing driven company? Or are you mainly MQLs, or is it BDRs and outbound SDRs getting all of your discovery calls?
It's the outbound and the inbound team getting all the discovery calls. So the marketing team, we spend about probably $30,000 a month between Capterra, software advice, etc.
Are you on Google Ads? Are you doing it through
Google
social?
Ads. I can't remember all of them, but yeah, Software Connect.
Are you doing Facebook and Instagram? And
yes,
okay.
Instagram, I don't know. I know we're doing Facebook. I know we're doing LinkedIn.
What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know you're on the sales side, but I like this between LinkedIn, like Facebook, cost per acquisition we're finding is way lower than LinkedIn. And you could target way better. Are you involved in that at all, or no?
I'm not, I'm in the meetings where we discuss CAC and things like that.
Right.
But I'm not in that decision-making process. That's between my CEO, the finance team, and our head of marketing. And quite frankly, I have enough on my plate that.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were finding that the deals that were closing from marketing, do you even know that where they're coming from?
Yeah,
we
do.
For LinkedIn, are they coming from Facebook?
No, we tried. No, they're not coming from Facebook. Capterra is our #1 lead source. Software advice is #2. Direct is #3, and Google Ads is #4.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but we're specialized software.
Right.
Capterra is critical for us. If you're doing specialized software, you can't do it without Capterra, and they're not cheap, and they're owned by Gartner. But we wouldn't be where we are without Capterra.
Right. Yeah, they're definitely not. Okay, cool. So let's get back real quick. Let's jump back to your team and leadership. So at this point, what's your leadership process? How are you, I like the idea of that 2 to 4 year range, not as many bad habits, right? You're not trying to fix things. How have you found, what is some of the processes you found around leadership that have led to increased performance?
I'll make a statement. Just because I think I'm a leader doesn't mean I'm a leader. You lead by example. I can't make Richie believe that I'm a leader. But if I work with Richie and we're successful together, he's going to perceive me as a leader. It's Richie's perception of me, not my perception of me as a leader. So I have to prove myself every day to them in terms of, here's what we're going to do. Here's why we're going to do it. And by the way, in terms of culture, at Intellect, we're a clan culture. I don't dictate to them. We talk about it, we work through it, and we come to an agreement of what we're going to do. So it's very much a clan culture where, if it's something we have to do and I have to dictate it, they'll listen to me because of all the other stuff that we do. But I prefer not to do that. So like, we hired a consultant recently. Well, I had this consultant meet with all the team members just to make sure they liked him. And that's part of the process. But I don't think you're handed the title leader and they have to believe you're the leader. You have to earn that every day, by the way, not just once, but every single day. And you earn that title.
So let's talk about the how, because I think that's important. I love it. So how do you go about doing that? How do you go about that process? Do you have like specific number of meetings per week? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you structure that?
I'll quote Gene Bouchelon, who was my director of sales many, many years ago. Now lives in Florida. They don't work for me, I work for them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me know what you need, Let me know how to clear the road for you so you can be successful. Let me know what you don't understand, and I'll explain it to you. Come to me as much as you want. My door is always open. But my goal is to make you successful, because at the end of the day, if you're successful, then I'm successful. And then I kid with them. You know, it's all about me, but at the end of the day, you're going to benefit from that, because I'm not successful if you're not. I always kid with them about that, but it is about them. So if you make it about them and how to make them successful, it will work. And there are some people who will never be successful, and that's okay. They'll find other opportunities.
Right.
But if you help them be successful, you will be successful. Tom Williams taught me that a long time ago. I remember it was my first management job. I'm like, Tom, how am I going to hit my number? How do I track it? What do I look at, et cetera, et cetera? He goes, don't worry about that, Peter. If you coach your team and you make them successful, you'll just hit it. You won't even know how. You'll just hit it. And I've always appreciated Tom for that. And I did that, and it worked.
So what's your process for doing that? Like, do you have like set, pipeline reviews or one-on-ones with your team or team huddles? Like, how do you go about keeping them engaged and coaching them? Like, do you have a specific process that you found that's really worked well for you?
So I have, with each team member, I meet with them 1 hour per week. So I have, I think, 9 or 10 team members. That's 10 hours of my time. I have a weekly sales meeting every Monday morning from 8:30 to 9:30. We have a sales training session every Wednesday from 9 to 10. And then they have access to my calendar. And my calendar will have a bunch of stuff on it that's tentative. And I'll say, hey guys, if you have a sales call you want me on, and there's something tentative, grab that slot. It's yours. If it's tentative, it means I don't have to be there. So I have about 20 hours a week of preset meetings with them.
Wow.
And then the rest of the time is, like I said, 10 hours of calls this week. So now we're up to 30 hours, and my week hasn't even begun yet. So my process is ensuring that I'm in front of each one of them for a minimum of, sounds like 3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah.
Yep. With all of them. And the calls are fun. We talk about their deals. We have fun together. And I tell them this, hey guys, the day you're not having fun, go find another job. Have fun, because this should not be a slog for you. You should enjoy this.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of FaceTime. Well, there's a lot of Zoom time together. It's no longer FaceTime.
Is everyone remote?
Everyone's remote. When COVID hit in it was 2020, I guess.
Right.
When COVID hit in 2020, we had this beautiful office in Los Angeles, the 11th floor of the Pepperdine building, overlooking a cemetery. Awesome stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. But no, it's really nice. It's in called Howard Hughes Parkway.
Nice.
Anyway, when COVID hit, we all went remote. We had a last lunch together. See you in a couple of weeks. It's now been 2.5 years. But it's been seamless for us. And for me, as a sales leader leading the entire sales division, it's been an opportunity for me to expand who I'm hiring, because there's no longer that requirement to be in the office. So I hired Aaron, who's in Jacksonville, Florida. I hired David, who's in Tennessee. I hired Cooper, who's in Shawnee, Kansas. I don't even believe Shawnee, Kansas exists. I always tell them that.
How are you finding? How did you? A lot of people are trying to hire good talent right now and are
recruiters.
Struggling.
We have some really good recruiters.
You have like outside staffing agencies
or
internal
contingent recruiters. Pay them their 20%. They find me my candidates. Yeah, nice. They've done a great job. And it's not a big investment. Because when you think about it, what they're going to generate, as long as you find good candidates, it's just not that big of an investment.
And you're all W-2, right? You're not.
We're all W-2, yes.
Yeah.
More
And
open.
so I'm assuming you're not a setter closer model, right? Your sales reps are taking them I mean, you have setters, that would be your SDR, your BDRs, your outbound reps. And then you have who you work with or what would you consider them, AEs?
They're
Take them
A's, yeah.
discovery.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're A's. I mean, since 2000, when I joined Cross Border Solutions, I've been selling remotely. This is not new for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company out there called Manitowoc. I'll never forget it. We were failing miserably at Cross Border Solutions too. And I hired Fred Freed, who I had known for years, great salesperson. And it was the last day of the quarter. I think it was September 30th. And Fred got Manitowoc in for over $100,000. Never met with them. Everything was done over the phone. It was like a $120,000 deal.
Wow.
And after that, we were off and running. And this is in the year 2000.
Right. So that's with inflation, that's like $300,000.
Whatever it is. Yeah, whatever it is. With today's inflation, it's over $1 million.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I mean, it was eye-opening for me because I joined there and they were remote, and I had come from Thompson where I had, 300 salespeople all over the country. And I'm like, you sell over the phone? WebEx? What's WebEx? And, we did it. And we went again from, 20 people to 140, all over the phone. Never went and visited our customers. Maybe once or twice we did it, and we didn't win those deals.
Right. Wow. So okay, so about 30 hours. So what about the rest of your time? Are you constantly looking for additional software options or how are you focusing on growth, right? Like what is your,
I'm doing podcasts, Richie. I'm doing podcasts.
Hey, I have to say, Peter, this is such a good way to get in front of good salespeople.
I hope
It
so.
is. It's a great way to do it, and sales leaders and connections. But I'm just curious for you, like what in that additional time, are you working on improving scripts? Are you working on improving processes? Is it systems? Is like how are you, how are you finding the best use of your time outside of that face time with your sales team?
Yeah. So I used to want to control everything, admittedly, and it was killing me. So now I feel like we have a structure in place where I may come up with an idea. I'll run it by, say, my sales engineer, Jen. She'll think it's great. I go, great, implement it. You can come to me if you have questions, fantastic. But let's talk about how you implement it. I rely on my team to get it done. We actually take it every 3 months. It's called Situational Leadership, where you work with your sales team or your team members. Not have to be sales team because all of the senior management team does it. And you work on different situations, how to manage them. But if I try to do everything, two things happen. First of all, I become a maniac and nobody wants to deal with me. But more importantly, my people don't learn and they don't grow.
Yeah.
They have to learn how to do it. Just today, I used to, there's a report I get every Friday morning, 6 a.m. A report comes through. It tells me all of the KPIs that my salespeople aren't doing, like deals with no future activities, things like that. And I used to go through it with them. We have a new sales operations associate. As I mentioned, we promoted the sales op manager to rev ops. I said, Vic, starting today, you're going to meet with each salesperson for 30 minutes every week and go through these KPIs and figure out if they haven't done them, help them do it. I used to do this. I don't need to do that. She can do it. She's good at that, and they like her.
Yeah.
So let her do that. And then she can come back to me in 10 minutes, tell me what's going on. I have to let go. My CEO's told me this. Peter, you got to let go. You got to let go. So I'm kind of the idea person. I'm not the doer. I find the people that are best fit to do it. Again, going to Vic, we've been having a really hard time with RFPs. We get a lot of RFPs now because we're going upstream with our deals. But we don't have the bandwidth to do it. So Vic is our RFP person now. go to Vic, send her the RFP. She'll find the resources for the different questions, whether it's software development, it could be marketing, it could be success, whoever it is, and she'll get it done for you. This is a great opportunity for her.
Right.
And this is stuff I used to do. It's my time is spent meeting with the management team, meeting with the leadership team, meeting with my sales team, and then trying to come up with ideas that will make us better, but not doing those ideas. Right?
Not implementing. You delegate implementation.
Correct. Because, and again, I think that's part of leadership. You have to learn to let go. You watch over them, you manage them to it. And if you ever take situational leadership, which I strongly recommend, you'll learn this concept S1, R1, etc. Okay, well, is this something, I'll use Vic again, is this something she's never done and she doesn't feel capable of doing? Then she's an S1, R1. Is this something she's done before and she can do again? Then she's an S4, R4. Well, if she's an S4, R4, I tell her what to do and just let her do it. If she's an S1 or R1, I tell her what to do and walk through every single step of what she's going to need to do, and then ensure that she does it correctly. And so each task is different. That's why it's called situational leadership, because there's some things she's just going to be able to do it. There's other stuff she needs guidance. And if it's something she's done before and I try to micromanage her, she's going to hate me for it. And if there's stuff that she hasn't done before and I ask her to do it, and I don't give her the guidance, she's going to hate me for it. So you have to understand each situation on how to lead them, because leading isn't about telling them everything to do. It's about understanding what their knowledge set is, what their capabilities are, and helping them through that.
Right.
If that makes, I don't know if it made sense there, but
for sure. Yeah. So Peter, what's your next play? What's your next level? What's the next play for you?
When we did the acquisition, I kept a bunch of stock. So my next play is take this company to the next level. We believe in 4 years, instead of being a $50 million company, we'll be a $500 million company. And I'm done. That's my next play.
Retire.
Yeah.
But you'll never retire.
I won't. I know that.
I could tell. You're not that kind of person.
And I always say that. And
you'll retire, but you'll find something that you continue doing, something you love.
I am very restless. And I love what I do. I love the fact that I am busy all the time. I love complaining to my CEO that I'm busy all the time, even though I love being busy all the time. Because I'll go stir crazy. I've had time off. I've had very lucrative severance packages where I had 6 months off, and within a month, I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Well, what am I going to do? So, I won't be sitting around.
Nice. Well, cool, man. I love it. Where can people find you if anyone's interested in connecting with you? Sure.
It's Peter Cutler, Cutler. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at intellect.com, P Cutler at intellect.com, and you can find me with my number at 310-237-5754. I sound like an advertiser, but there you go.
Cool, man. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't ask?
No, but I'd love to do a more detailed presentation in the future, where I go into our 7-step sales process and all the processes that we do, and really get into that if people want to learn about that, and if you think it's appropriate, because that's really what's driven our success lately.
Listen, I think that would be awesome, man. But it'll probably more of like it's probably more YouTube format where you and I connect and we go through a sales process. I think that would be awesome. Let's talk offline. Let's make that happen. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, let's make it about them and what they can do rather than being about me and what I've done.
Well, the thing is, we got to do that. We got to get through that, Peter. We got to learn how you've been successful, because that's how people take away nuggets. There's a couple things on here that people take away and they say, hey, this is what I'm going to implement.
If they learn just one thing off of this, like I said, learn one thing every day, you're growing every single day. It's fantastic.
That's the purpose. Peter, thank you so much for being on the show.
Richie, thank you. I really appreciate it. You take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Next Play podcast. If you liked the show, make sure to leave us a review. For more resources, visit relentlessuniversity.com or download the free Relentless University app. And if you're interested in having me speak at your next event, visit relentlessrichie.com. Until next time.